8radio.com.
Hello again, everybody. This is Joe Larson. You're watching the 5 Off, 5 On Racing Show. We made it. For those of you who are not familiar with Long Island, traffic on Long Island sometimes can be worse than traffic at Martinsville Speedway. It's just a horror show. But anyway, we made it. We're here. We're good. We're ready to rock and roll. We got some good stuff to talk about. Obviously, Martinsville and the events that happened in Martinsville with two particular drivers who are going to take it out on each other and pay each other back. We'll talk about that in a bit. Got the North-South Shootout coming up this weekend. We'll talk about that. The Mexican Grand Prix of Mexico City. We got some stuff with that and just a few other tidbits that we'll talk about tonight. But I want to go right to Martinsville. Martinsville, because that's one of my favorite places. I've been to that track probably more than 20 times for cup events, truck events, some modified events over the years. And I'll tell you, it's typical short track racing. And that's, as a casual fan who likes to watch the crashes and the wrecks, I guess you got your money's worth this weekend. But I'll tell you what, think about this. Here's a race that starts like at 1 o'clock in the afternoon, ends at 5, 4 hours. Think about sitting in your car and driving for 4 hours. But what you're doing is you're going down a straightaway for about, 3, 4 seconds. And then you're on your brakes. You got to turn real hard because it's a paperclip. And you're on the gas for like 3, 4, 4.5, 5 seconds. And you do that 1,000 times. And you do that 1,000 times. Think about that. So, some people that don't think that race car drivers are athletes, try doing that. Try just doing that. Forget about the mental aspect of driving a race car. And they're hitting about 119, 120 at the end of the straightaway, and they drop it down to about 65, 68 in the corners. The speed you drive on your local freeway is the speed they're on the turns. Think about that. And then they right up, I think that, they hit the gas, they go down that straightaway, and 117, 118, 119, I think a couple of guys topped out at 120. That's motoring. That's motoring. And you do it, you're making a left, and you're turning 1,000 times. There's 500 laps, there's 2 turns. I know you'd say you turn 2, turn 3, turn 3, turn 4, and all that, but you really are in the turn twice a lot. But anyway, Jeff Gordon came atop there. Jeff Gordon recording his 93rd career win. He's in 3rd place in the all-time win list behind Richard Petty, who has 200, and David Pierce has 105. And I would think if Jeff Gordon were to hang on maybe another season, full-time season, he'd have a shot at passing Pearson. I really believe that. Who would have thought back in 1992 at Atlanta Motor Speedway when this kid Jeff Gordon came out of the what was called then the Busch Series and hopped in a Hendrick car and started what was to become his first Sprint Cup race and be Richard Petty's last race. Now here we go. He's going to call it quits, he says. I don't believe that. I think he's going to do what Mark Martin did. He's going to run some select races and be there and maybe even put together his own team. I don't know. There's always a lot of speculation. But Jeff Gordon, I wasn't a Jeff Gordon fan when he was in the Cup Series. I liked him in the Busch Series and when he was running sprint cars and stuff on the dirt. But when he came into the Cup Series, and I don't mean this in a bad way, but I don't want to use the term crybaby because that's the wrong way to approach this in a professional way. But he was an outspoken kid in an opposite way of how Darrell Waltrip was outspoken. Darrell Waltrip was sitting there telling you how it should be done. And Jeff Gordon was kind of saying how it shouldn't be done. But Jeff Gordon, I'll tell you what, the guy is aces. He's a talented race car driver. He's a consummate professional. But, he took the win down at Martinsville, followed by Jamie McMurray, who just ran out of laps. Denny Hamlin was third. Dale Earnhardt Jr. fourth. Kyle Busch was fifth. Martin Truex Jr. sixth. Ryan Newman was seventh, followed by Kevin Harvick, who was eighth. Casey Kane ninth. Tony Stewart rounded out the top 10. There's four guys left in the chase. There's two races left in this round. They're going to cut it down to 4. Right now, Jeff Gordon is the point leader and guaranteed a spot in the chase in the final going to Homestead with that win at Martinsville. Kyle Busch is second. Then we have Martin Truex Jr. third and Kevin Harvick fourth. The only person, like I said, is locked in is Jeff Gordon. Then you got Carl Edwards in fifth. Now, Carl Edwards is 17 points behind Jeff Gordon right now because they reset the points, as everybody knows. Carl Edwards is fifth. And Brad Keselowski is sixth. Kurt Busch seventh. And Joey Logano, who was wrecked and had a pretty poor finish, is eighth in points. I'm thinking Joey Logano, Kurt Busch, and Brad Keselowski, we're going to have to get wins because their points aren't going to be enough to get them into the Final Four with 2 races left. So, Carl Edwards has a shot there, as Harvick and Truex Jr. do. But when you look at this chase thing, now, again, I've been back and forth on this chase and my feelings on it, and this is what the chase was intended to do. It was intended to get fans interested in this. And what happened Saturday, or Sunday, I should say, what happened with Matt Kenseth and Jeff Gordon, with Kenseth taking Logano out for what he felt was not a payback, multiple paybacks. Finally, he had enough. It's going to be interesting to see what NASCAR does about that because the fans were going wild. They were booing Logano because they always boo the winner. A guy who wins all the time, they're going to boo him. And when Kenseth got out of his car and was walking to the ambulance, the mandatory ambulance, right, to the care center, the people were cheering him. And it was, you could tell it was difficult for him to react, and he just looked down and had his head, he was walking, and right before he got in the ambulance, he did a wave, and the place erupted. Joey Logano, a kid from Connecticut, makes it into the Cup Series. He's tearing up the Sprint Cup Series this year, tearing it up, won every race in the last round. And he does some stuff that ticks people off. And I was talking to somebody yesterday, I was watching a race, and I was talking to somebody, and I said, some of the stuff that Joey Logano does is typical short track racing Saturday night style. And think about some of the things that occurred between him and Kenseth in the past season. Kansas kind of rings a bell, and Logano kind of did his thing. And was it racing? Maybe it was, maybe it wasn't. But the bottom line is, they've wrecked a couple of times where Kenseth got the worst end of it. Now, one of those restarts in the race yesterday at Martinsville, one of those restarts where, they were playing games up there in the front row, go, not go, go, not go, and it stacked up the field at one point, causing Kenseth, some problems. And, when you think about it, that little stack up of cars cost Kenseth a lap because he had to go in and down pit road and fix tire rub and all that kind of good stuff. So now what happens is Kenseth says, you know what, I'm not in the chase. I'm going to make sure this guy don't get in the chase too. Right, wrong, or indifferent. I'm not saying I agree with what Kenseth did, but you know what I'm saying? I would have did the same thing. And I have done stupid things like that. But you know what? It gets to the point where enough is enough. He was in a position to send him, and he did. And he did. And you know what? I don't know if NASCAR's going to suspend him. I don't think Matt Kenseth is going to get suspended for this. He may get fined. His team may get fined. There might be a point deduction. It really doesn't matter because he's not in the chase. But you know what? People are going to say, well, they should suspend him. They should park him. They should do this. NASCAR made an announcement, and they said that the 20 car is done for the day. No kidding. The car was just, there was no way they were fixing that car. They were not fixing that car to go back. So you know what? NASCAR had to say something like that and make it appear they were doing something. So, think about this. Is there going to be a penalty, as I just said? I don't know. That bad blood between Kenseth and Logano is good for the sport. And why do I say that? Because the sport lacks character. It lacks character. It lacks characters. It lacks the villain. It lacks the hero. It's a cookie cutter, milk and cookies, mom and pop racing game right now. And they got to get the ratings up. So now you have something like this. One of the guys I talk to about racing every Monday, with the armchair crew chiefs, he was saying that it's almost like the WWE. You have to have a villain, and you got to have a good guy. And everybody wants the villain to be beaten, and everybody's going to cheer the good guy. So what happens? You got this bad book. So people are saying, he needs to be suspended for that. He needs to sit out the rest of the season. Some NASCAR announcers and broadcasters are saying that. They're saying that's what should happen. Well, what about Danica Patrick? Earlier in the race, did everybody forget what she did? Danica Patrick gets a little squirrely. Imagine that. And David Gillian gives her a little bump. She goes around. A harmless spin. What does she do? She goes after Gillian and she wrecks not only his car, but her car too. Why aren't the people talking about that? Why aren't people saying, what's going to happen to Danica for doing that? Nobody is. Nobody is. So whatever happens to Matt Kenseth really needs to happen to Danica as well. And that's why I say nothing's going to happen. The little fine, 50,000, 100,000, whatever, probation for 6 months. All right, what is probation? There's been drivers that have been on probation in the Sprint Cup Series, the Xfinity Series, and the Camp World Truck Series on probation for things that they did, and then a couple of years later they do something else. Now, when you get arrested in this country and you get probation, the judge says probation, and you do anything wrong, you're going. You're taking a ride upstate, somewhere, downstate, wherever your prison is in your state, you're going. NASCAR's the only place that when you put on probation, if you have another infraction down the road, it's another probation. So I guess you have to do the same thing that you're on probation for. I'm not trying to knock NASCAR. I'm just trying to ask that question, make people think about this. But, Danica did the same thing. It really did. And it's going to be interesting to see what bolsters out of this at the competition meeting and down in I guess it's going to be in Concord, where they're going to discuss what's going to happen with this. And I'm going to tell you something right now, NASCAR is happy about this because they got people talking. They got people talking, and that's what they want. Now, people are going to tune in to Texas this weekend just to see what happens. NASCAR wins. NASCAR wins. And I don't know. It's one of those things. But anyway, going back to how that looks there. So after this, I just did the points there. Now, there's 2 races left. Jeff Gordon's guaranteed a spot. And the guys at the bottom, Logano, Kurt Busch, Brad Keselowski, they basically have to win. But all these other guys have to finish way in the back, which I don't think that's going to happen. For them to get into the Final Four going to Homestead. It'll be interesting to see how this all pans out. It really should be. Also at Martinsville, all this was going on as the Camping World Truck Series was there as well. Matt Crafton was the winner with John Hunter Nemechek second. Cameron Haley was third. Cole Custer was fourth. Tyler Reddick was fifth. We had Timothy Peters sixth. Brendan James was seventh. Caleb Holman was eighth. Johnny Sauter ninth. And Eric Jones rounding out the top 10. As it looks now, Eric Jones, point leader. Matt Crampson, 10 back. Tyler Rivers, 13 back. In third, Johnny Sauter's out of it in fourth, 54 points back, followed by Timothy Peters, Cameron Haley, Daniel Hemrick, John West Townley, and Ben Kennedy rounding out the top 10. So that's what that's looking at. Texas this weekend coming up. Like I said, it should be interesting, be one of those things that you want to see. But NASCAR's getting what it wants. It's getting people to be interested in this chase. and they're going to see who's going to wreck who. Think about this now. Think about the team cars, because every team has team cars now. Are the Jeff Gordon people, Hendrick Motorsports, are they going to be protecting him, making sure nobody gets to him? Right? What about the Joe Gibbs Racing? Are they going to be protecting their guys? Should be interesting how this pans out at Texas, because I'll tell you what, when it comes to racing, it's not like it is in football and baseball and basketball. They say the best defense is a good offense. They got to play defensive here. They got to protect their driver. They got to kind of ride around. Now, it's tough. Once they strap in, buckle in, put the helmet on, tighten it up, and the head is getting squeezed, it's a whole different ballgame. But think about this. Think about what's going to go down at Texas. And it should be interesting. NASCAR's going to win this time because everybody's going to tune in. Speaking of tuning in, we're going to take a break, some commercials, and we come back. We'll talk about the Mexican Grand Prix down in Mexico City when we come back.
Hey, this is Chris Jake, and if InRavio.com spots you at an event wearing this bracelet, they will give you $100.
Village Music Shop of Mastic. 1-800-HEY-DUDE. Your full-service store with personalized attention, school band instrument rentals and sales, music instruction on all instruments for all styles and age groups, for guitars, drums, amplifiers, PA systems, and accessories. It's Village Music Shop. 1495 Montauk Highway in Mastic. Call 1-800-HEY-DUDE or go to villagemusicshop.com.
Hey, I'm Raul Panther.
And I'm Commander B. Hawkins.
And I'm Russ Weller. We're some of the proto men. If we see you without this bracelet, we get punched in the But if you have this bracelet from InRavio.com, you can win $100.
Put one of these on, or else.
For over 60 years, Hanson Carpet has put the customer first, providing only the finest quality products and service. And Hanson Carpet is so much more than just carpet. We also carry a wide selection of window blinds and shades, and our licensed and insured technicians can service any of your flooring or window covering needs. Browse our huge selection of laminate, carpet, linoleum, vinyl, and tile. Stop by our showroom today or visit HansonCarpet.com. No matter what your project, Hanson Carpet has got you covered. The world of advertising has changed. Radio, TV, and newspaper revenues have declined drastically. Why? Because businesses have realized that advertising return on investment isn't what it used to be. So what can we do about it? Well, that's easy. Advertise online. Own a local restaurant, real estate agency, or even a national retail chain? Whatever your business, InRavio can get your message out there, and we can do it at a fraction of the cost. Call today and see the difference for yourself. This isn't TV. This isn't radio. This is InRavio.com.
Hey, welcome back. Welcome back. Mexican Grand Prix out of Mexico City, down in Mexico. Nico Rosberg was the winner, followed by Lewis Hamilton. Valtteri Bottas was third. Daniil Kvyat was fourth, and Daniel Ricciardo was fifth. As the points sit down right now, Hamilton is the lead point leader, Rosberg is second, and Sebastian Vettel is third. So, it should be interesting to see how that series which I never understood that series. How do they travel all over the world? The cost to run those things has got to be insane, let alone the cost to get the cars and equipment and the teams all over the country. I knew how hard it was when the modifieds went up to Canada, to the Delaware Speedway in Ontario, and when we went up there, just crossing the border as officials was not the easiest thing, let alone these race teams who had to have a manifest, what was on their hauler, what they were there for, what they were doing, down to each lug nut. They had to have an inventory. When you came back, you had to come back with the same stuff. It was kind of interesting. But that Grand Prix, that Formula One stuff, it's just, man, I just don't understand how they make it happen. But they do. But they do. Anyway, I had read in Area Auto Racing News column, Ernie Saxton's column, about this new reality show called the Checkered Flag Challenge. It's like I said, a new reality show. It's where everyday normal people like you guys, I couldn't say like you and me because I guess I'm not an everyday normal person because I've driven race cars, but everyday normal people get to drive a NASCAR type race car and race for $2 million to win. It's a season-long production. It's put on by Peterbilt Productions out of Florida. And they announced recently that thousands, tens of thousands of people are signing up to get into this reality show. And the contestants will be chosen at random. 28-time NASCAR winner Mike Skinner will be training these drivers for this. And basically, it's an elimination. Every week, there'll be 4 or 5 people racing. And you have to win. And as long as you win, you go on to other rounds. But each week it's different people. And in the finale, I believe if I understood the entry rank properly, the finale is going to be held at the Daytona International Speedway in Daytona Beach, Florida, and where the winner gets $2 million. A reality show about racing, like not Madhouse that was on TV a couple of years ago, but a real reality show about racing and what goes on behind the scenes and racing and moving on and knowing you're going for $2 million. Think about that. You're going for $2 million. And you don't want to be eliminated. You're going to drive as hard as you can. So Mike Skinner will be training these people on how to race. But I figure, maybe I can go into that because I really, I'm not even going to get into it. Not going to get into it because I want to be all good, no positive here. But yes, should be interesting. So it's called the Checkered Flag Challenge. You can look it up online. If that's something you want to try, go ahead and go for it. So go for it. And 22 figure 8, yeah, going back to the Camp World Truck Series. Yes, John Hunter Nemechek is named after his Uncle John, who the brother of Joe Nemechek. They used to call him Front Row Joe. John was killed at the old Miami Speedway, a track that looked like Indy, as a 22 figure 8 is saying. And he's following in the family footsteps, being a race car driver. And I think he has a promising career in NASCAR and wherever else he might want to race. So that's that on that. So, I'm going to try to enter that thing. What's the worst they could tell me? I'm not eligible? I mean, come on, what can they do? What can they do? Anyway, yes. Well, let's see. We got the North-South Shootout this weekend at the Caraway Speedway in Caraway, North Carolina. It'll be November 6th and 7th. It'll be the 13th annual North-South Shootout. 30-plus drivers, modified drivers, have already committed to go. There's more to follow, I'm sure. Many of the tour regulars, the Northern Tour and the Southern Tour, as well as people from the Valente Modified Series, the ROC Series, and just about every modified series that there is. Concord, a unique dog-shaped type racetrack that has like an up and a down. You go down and you come back up. I've never raced there, never been there. I've only heard from people who have. Would love to get down to see that event. So we'll see how that goes. Love to see how that goes. It's one of those winter races or off-season races where the bragging rights to that are unbelievable. And CNC has always promoted this race, and I had the opportunity to work it a few times at the Caraway Speedway And, you know, it was just kind of funny that, you know, you would think there was a big point race, a big championship online, but no, there's a nice payday, don't get me wrong. But the guys and gals who race in this event take this so serious, and as they should, as they very well should. But it's going to be one of those races. Again, it's bragging rights. You know, the late Chris Young once told me, you know, if you win on Saturday night, you brag for a week. If you win the last race of the year, you brag all the entire off season. And I kind of laughed when he said that. And, you know, it kind of means a little more now, but, you know, how true it is. You know, you win on Saturday night in a regular season race, you brag until the next Saturday night. You win the last race of that year until you race again, you bragging all winter long. But yeah, it'll be at the Concord Motorsports Park. So should be interesting. Should be a good race, good time, good time. Anyway, social media. Social media was a buzz this weekend, as it always is when it comes to racing. Due in part a post by Race Day Connecticut regarding Riverhead Raceway owner Ed Partridge, who owns Riverhead Raceway with his wife Connie. Ed had made a comment to Race Day Connecticut, not even a comment, he had an old interview, that he is very frustrated and angry with the NASCAR Whelen Modified Tour, feeling that they had cost him a championship or a possible championship in 2015 due to the events that took place not only in New Hampshire Motor Speedway up in Loudon, New Hampshire, but throughout the season as well. Ed cites poor officiating, poor communication, and the lack of consistency on the officials of the NASCAR Whelen Modified Tour, allowing certain people to get away with things where if somebody else were to do that, they'd be penalized. And it's frustrating to see a guy like Eddie Partridge, who I've known, I'm going to say for a short period of time, maybe 12 years, when he ran here on Long Island with Bo Gunning coming to Riverhead Raceway when I was the chief steward there. And I was like, who's this guy, Bo Gunning? You know, why is he running here when he lives in Connecticut? But I had heard of Eddie Partridge. I heard that he was been around for a long time, ran Islip and Riverhead and whatnot. But I never saw this man angry. And let me tell you something. And I'm going to go back to a day or a night, it's a Saturday night at Riverhead Raceway, where Eddie had a couple of cars. He had Bo Gunning and Mike Curtis driving for him. But the track favorite at the time was J.R. Bertuccio. And they were beating and banging and wrecking each other week after week after week. And I finally had no choice but to bring them both into the office. And guys, we got to do something here. We got to talk. We got to resolve it. You guys can't keep wrecking your race cars. So Joe Bertuccio, in his infinite wisdom, came up with an idea. And Joe said, and I kid you not, Joe said, Eddie, this is what we're going to do. You bring all your cars to the track one day. I'll bring all my cars to the track one day. We'll put drivers in every one, and we'll race. Whatever car's running at the end, that guy gets to race here, and the other guy leaves and goes somewhere else. And Ed Partridge just very calmly, Joe, that's not going to happen. And Joe could be excitable and loud, and Joe was getting excited and loud, and Eddie just stood there, very quiet. And like I said, I've never seen this man, Ed Partridge, upset. I'm sure he gets upset behind closed doors. I'm sure in his business and, you know, in the trucking industry, there's times you got to get upset. But I never saw him at the racetrack get upset, no matter what. And for Eddie Partridge to say, I might have to pull my deal and not support the NASCAR Whelen Modified Tour, tells you something. Tells you something. The car counts are dwindling. Good teams are leaving. The 93 team with Roman Pennick, I hear, is leaving. The 88 team is leaving to go dirt racing. You know, they don't have the car counts, as I said, that they once had. Sometimes we were sending in, when I first went on to that series in 03, 04, 05 full-time, we were sending home more cars some Saturday nights or some weekends than we were starting in the race. A lot of cars, a lot of cars. Now the fields aren't even being filled, and now you have a competitor like Ed Partridge, who had a driver in Ryan Peace this last year, who it's obvious Ryan's moving into bigger and better things, and I don't mean better in the sense that he didn't have a good deal. He had a great deal with Ed Partridge. But he's, when you get an opportunity to run the last 4 Cup races of a season, that's how it starts. That's how Jeff Gordon got his start. He ran, like the last Cup race of the year, and he was full-time the following year. And Ryan Preece is a good wheelman. And, but he came second in the points a couple of times, just missing out on a champion. And the last one upset Eddie. The last one upset him. And he felt that there would have been a whole different outcome if, A, Doug Colby didn't wreck him, his driver, and if Doug Colby then, after the wreck, would have been penalized for what he did. So NASCAR needs to take a look at that. They need to take a look at a guy like Ed Partridge and why he wants to move, not only just move on, he wants to move out of this. So now the question comes up is, Eddie's got this disappointment, I'll call, with NASCAR. So now all of a sudden the social media goes on, well, does that mean he's not going to have tour races at Riverhead? Does that mean he's going to this? Does that mean he's not going to be NASCAR? Let me tell you something. Ed Partridge is going to be a NASCAR racetrack on Long Island. He's going to use the NASCAR sanctioning because that's what you do. That's what you do. And, you could go without NASCAR. And you got to have some insurance, if you're going to go without NASCAR. But you know what? You don't want to put your personal stuff and your business on the line for a racetrack. You go with NASCAR, you're covered. So I think and I feel that there will be tour races at Riverhead Raceway next year, although the relationship might be strained, because basically what happens on tour days at any racetrack is you're giving NASCAR the keys to the place and they're kind of taking over your show. But to hear his upsetness, and you go to RaceConnecticut.com and you could get it in its entirety, what he's upset about and why he's upset and how this has been just building and building and building and building. And he's tried to communicate with the powers that be on the modified tour. He's tried to talk to series director Jim Wilson, race director Brian Vance, and he gets what he considers lip service. And I was behind the scenes there, and I'm not going to tell any tales out of school because I'm not that way. But I will tell you this: if you're not part of the circle, and in the NASCAR levels and the touring levels, it's a big circle. But if you're not part of that circle and you're on the outside of that circle, you don't stand a chance. And I would think here's a guy who's buying a racetrack. There was no secret he was buying a racetrack, a NASCAR racetrack, a racetrack that's been around for a long, long time. And, through Barbara and Jim Cromedy, under the NASCAR banner. For those who don't know, Barbara and Jim Cromedy were one of the first, in fact, not one of the first, they were the first weekly short track to sign up to be in what was called then as the Winston Weekly Racing Series. And going with those points and all those benefits that went with it. So why would he change? Why would he buy a racetrack and change that? I don't think that's going to happen. So mark my words, there's going to be tour races at Riverhead Raceway next year, I would think. Why not? Why not? So, but you have to think about this. Here's a guy, one of the most mellow guys I've ever seen, a consummate professional, a businessman. He's going to take all his equipment, his top-notch equipment, and say, I'm not running the NASCAR Wheel and Modified Tour anymore. I think somebody from the higher-ups on the Modified Tour needs to take a ride. Not call them. They need to get in a plane, get in a bus, a car, train, whatever, go meet Eddie at his shop and resolve this. Because when you start losing your good guys, you're in trouble. You're in trouble. You don't want to lose that, And yeah, WJ, I agree. Welcome. I hope you're feeling better. I agree that he still has time to change his mind, but it's going to take a lot. And I think it's going to take more than a phone call. It's going to take more than a phone call, and a lot has to do with Ryan Preece as well. Eddie was quoted as saying, if Ryan Preece says, "Look, I'm only running these events. I could run these tour events," I'm sure Eddie will open up the garage doors and let that happen. Ryan Preece got caught up in some stuff at Martinsville. I think he finished like 41st, but he was running pretty good most of the day. So Ryan Preece is a good driver. I watched Ryan Preece grow on the NASCAR Wheel and Modified Tour, coming out of the SK ranks up in Connecticut. And one of the things, in my opinion, that Ryan did good is when he got away from the family team and he got in with other people and they did things a little different. And I'm not saying they did things better, but sometimes you got to do things different. And all of a sudden, his career grew and blossomed and became one of the guys to force to be reckoned with. So, and he does. He runs just about everything there is. Ryan, I'm telling you, you're going to be hearing about him, in years to come. He's not going to be one of those back markers. He's won just about everything he's been in, and like you're saying, 22 figure eight. He's talking about some of the names that were they were the modified, the bowlers, were there. Art Barry, those guys. Bob Garbarino is even talking about being done. It's just one of those things. And when I look back, and there's a whole different regime running the modified tour now, a whole different regime, from the top all the way on down to the lowest official. And and I can remember sitting down with Ed Cox and old man Bill Bryce, and we'd grab these guys. We'd grab the Art Barrys and the Michael Bowlers and the Bob Garbarinos, and we'd grab those guys and then some of the top builders, and we'd get with Flemke, at CD, Chassis Dynamics, and we'd get with these guys and we'd sit down and talk to them and get their input. What do we need? What do we need to do? What do we need to help you? And you know what? Somebody came along and said, no, we don't need to talk to them. We don't need to talk to them at all. We make the decisions. And look what's happened. Look what's happened. The car counts are down. And you know what? Is the economy to blame? Yeah, a little bit. But racers are racers. And I've seen racers live out of their pickup trucks and not pay their rent to go racing. So it's not the economy. I've seen racers drive past their local racetracks and drive 4 hours hauling a race car to go drive a race car somewhere because they had a falling out with their local race, or whatever the case may be. It's interesting to see how this is all going to pan out. And, I hope Eddie doesn't do that, and not because I want him to help the tour. I would hate to see the tour lose another good team, and it would be losing a championship caliber team if that were to happen. And it's all because of communication. Like with anything in life, communication is the key. And sometimes when you fail to communicate, what happens? Somebody's bubble bursts, and somebody takes the toys and goes home, or somebody takes the toys and tells you can't play with them. It's just one of those things when you're looking at that. When I read that, I was a little taken. I thought it was like hearsay, like rumor, part of the rumor mill, until I read the article, and they spoke to Eddie Partridge. They spoke to him, and you try to put a positive spin on everything. And is it a ploy so they say, oh, come on, don't do that? Because it's not like he's out of money. Some teams, they make up an excuse. They make up excuses as to why they're not racing and why they don't want to race. And the bottom line is they don't have the money. That's not the case with this team. The team is well funded, and there was never a lack of good equipment there. And they had one of the nicest haulers in the garage area. And I can remember Ed Cox saying, Ed Cox, the former series director, when I was on the tour, he grabbed all the owners together in a meeting one day and he said, guys, you're coming to me telling me you need bigger purses. You're coming to me and telling me you need, more races. You're telling me it's all about the money, that you're not getting enough money. And then you guys show up $1 million haulers. And he was like, it's the business I'm in, And when you think back on that, there was something that Ed Cox said one day at the owners' meeting, and we're going to take a break. But we're sitting there talking, and the True Value series had come to be, and they were racing all over the place. And on the off days of the tour, a lot of the tour guys are running it. And Ed Cox said, guys, if you continue to support that series, what you're doing is you're telling the track operators that you're willing to run for less money. And nobody believed it. Nobody believed him. And he said, please, guys, I'm telling you, I know you want to race, but if you support that other series and you race for 1,500, 1,700 to win, 2,000 to win, you're showing these guys, these track operators, that, wait, I don't need to pay them 10,000 to win or 8,000 to win. Next thing you know, the smaller tracks, the smaller venues were saying, well, we can't afford 6,000, well, we're going to pay 2,500. And they all show up because they're showing up for the other series. And the tracks that were paying 7,500, 6,000, 5,000 to win started paying 4. And this is the only business that I know of where what you're getting paid went down drastically. And it hasn't gone up. It hasn't gone up the way the course has gone up. The course is going this way, and the purses are going this way. We'll be back after this.
Hey, this is Chris Les Jake, and if InRavio.com spots you at an event wearing this bracelet, they will give you $100.
Village Music Shop of Mastic. 1-800-HEY-DUDE. Your full-service store with personalized attention, school band instrument rentals and sales, music instruction on all instruments for all styles and age groups, for guitars, drums, amplifiers, PA systems, and accessories. It's Village Music Shop, 1495 Montauk Highway in Mastic. Call 1-800-HEY-DUDE or go to villagemusicshop.com.
Hey, I'm Raul Panther.
And I'm Commander B. Hawkins.
And I'm Mark Well. We're some of the proto men. If we see you without this bracelet, you're punching the But if you have this bracelet from InRavio.com, you can win $100.
Put one of these on, or else.
For over 60 years, Hanson Carpet has put the customer first, providing only the finest quality products and service. And Hanson Carpet is so much more than just carpet. We also carry a wide selection of window blinds and shades, and our licensed and insured technicians can service any of your flooring or window covering needs. Browse our huge selection of laminate, carpet, linoleum, vinyl, and tile. Stop by our showroom today or visit HansonCarpet.com. No matter what your project, Hanson Carpet has got you covered. The world of advertising has changed. Radio, TV, and newspaper revenues have declined drastically. Why? Because businesses have realized that advertising return on investment isn't what it used to be. So what can we do about it? Well, that's easy. Advertise online. Own a local restaurant, real estate agency, or even a national retail chain? Whatever your business, InRavio can get your message out there, and we can do it at a fraction of the cost. Call today and see the difference for yourself. This isn't TV. This isn't radio. This is InRavio.com.
We're back. We are back. Anyway, a lot going on. The 2016 schedule for the Sprint Cup Series has been announced with some key date changes. And we understand the Xfinity cars will be at Pocono, so that'll be good. We'll talk more about that next week. But some good news out there. You know, it's not always doom and gloom. Mountain Speedway in Pennsylvania, where everybody said it was closing, they were building condos, and all that kind of good stuff. Mountain Speedway will be back in operation, and rumor has it, under the NASCAR banner. My sources tell me that They are not going to try to do what they did in the past and run the same night as Mahoning Valley, which is not too far away from them, but they will run on Sundays so that Mahoning can run Saturdays and give the opportunity for the Mahoning drivers to also race at Mount Speedy as well. If I was their PR or marketing people, what I would do is I would have some kind of Pennsylvania championship where if you run both racetracks, you get your total points, and there's like a bonus if you're the point leader to make it happen. Mountain Speedway, I've been there, maybe 2 or 3 times. A very nice facility, good hard racing there. It's good to see that it didn't fall the way of housing, because it's just, they keep putting up these condos and places, and the infrastructure around it can't handle more condos and stuff. So to save another racetrack, it ought to be really good. So good news that they're going to do that. And of course, they'll have the modifieds and whatever else they're going to run, probably late models and street stocks. But it's good to see, like I said, another racetrack is going to come back. And I don't want to really get into too much of the details here tonight, because I just got the news the other day, because I don't get news feeds like some of the older people do. I got to seek my information out. But that's going to change in 2016. Believe me when I tell you. But that's a good thing. Just like, the Long Island Racetrack, Riverhead Raceway, with new blood coming in and taking over, and what they did this past weekend. They raced on a date that the former owners told me couldn't be done. November 1st, the first annual Fall Frenzy was held at the Riverhead Raceway. Legend cars and an assorted selection of Enduro cars. But the Legend race was big. A lot of cars entered into this race. It was $1,000 to win, which is big for them. The race was won by Long Islander Brad Van Houten. Brad, who was a tough competitor at the Bull Ring here on Long Island. Good to see that a local guy won the race, because guys came from all over the place for this race. And, there was some, from what I understand, some glicks in the system, so to speak. But you know what? You have a new owner with new management, and who's what, who's this official, who's that. It was, what goes on here and who's doing what. I think that was one of the things that wasn't totally worked out. Sometimes you have to sit and plan that. And I called them back in the day at UPS Swiss cheese meetings. And a lot of people would say, oh, that sounds so negative. And basically what you do is you have a meeting, because this is what you plan to do next week, next month, next quarter, whatever it is. And then you talk about all the things that could go wrong, so that you have a plan in place to fix it right from the get-go, or put it in a position where those things. Now, I'm not saying that it was a disaster. It was awesome, from what I'm being told. But there were growing pains, and hopefully we take this event. When I say we, I'm not a part of it. But when they take this event and they look forward and say, all right, this is what we need to change. This is what we need to fix. This is what we need to improve on. And I think 2016 will be awesome. There were a handful of cars from the new divisions that they have there, shaking them down to try to I think they had a 1-hour practice session. Some of the crate mods and late models of crate motors, and to follow the new rules. And it's good to see that they were able to make that turnaround that fast, the competitors. Because you know what, I had mixed feelings when I saw all of these changes. I really did. And I'm not one that likes to make wholesale changes, little implement. How's this word? Like I teasing on the social media, because people saying, oh, who's staying, who's going, who's this, who's that. And I said, well, when you buy a new house, you can bring in your own furniture. And it's looking like that's not the case here. Just the upper management was changed, and there's a lot of the old timers, which isn't totally a bad thing. If you're doing a good job, you stay on, you keep what's good. But looking forward in 2016, I think there are going to be some growing pains. I think there's going to be some situations where car counts aren't going to be right away as big as people had hoped for. But it's going to take time. And there are a lot of competitors that is taking us, sitting back in a wait-and-see attitude. And you know what, guys and gals, I wouldn't sit back and wait and see, because you're going to miss the boat. The train's going to leave, and you're going to be on the platform. And for those who still continue to want to go bash, not only, the Long Island track, but any racetrack that you're affiliated. You don't want to bash your local racetrack, because what's going to happen is one day you're going to need something or want something, and they're going to say no. And I learned that lesson the hard way. I'll be the first to admit that. I was very outspoken when it came to those things, and whether it was with NASCAR or with my local racetrack. And sometimes you got to pay for that. And sometimes you just, move on and go do other things, like I am. So with that being said, you want to be positive. And, I go to a lot of racetracks and just about every weekend somewhere else. And I've discovered dirt racing. And I was never into it. In all those years, I went to Speed Weeks. I went to Volusia maybe twice for the dirt racing. I went to New Egypt before I was a tour official as a guest of Bill Bryce III and his wife, the late Janice Bryce. And I was like, all right, this is pretty exciting. But it didn't grab me. It didn't hook me. But now behind the scenes, it's a whole different perspective from behind the scenes as opposed to being a guy sitting in the stands watching. And I didn't understand a lot what was going on the first 4 or 5 times I went to dirt racing years ago, which also kind of took the interest away. But you're there from the gate opens to the gate closes, and you're behind the scenes, and you see a lot of things. And a lot of these racetracks, and I'll tell you, New Egypt, Orange County, those guys, they treat me and my staff like we're family. And they've they gave me a whole different feeling for racing again. Even when you go down to the asphalt tracks, Bethel, Mahoning Valley, Mountain, Wall Stadium, Waterford, and you go there and they announce you in the announcers booth. They bring you up, they bring me up and they introduce me. They talk about the show. They let me do some, talking with the fans and the announcers. They've made racing fun again. And you know what? I'm just a small guy with a show on Long Island that broadcasts to the world. And, I don't have 7.2 billion people watching my show, but people all over the country, Canada, Mexico and whatnot. And, you never know what the future's going to hold there. And my show's successful because it's not just my shows. A lot of people behind the scenes that make this happen. And you guys out there in the chat room, folks that don't go in the chat room who just log in and watch. My guys in the control room, they're awesome guys, and they keep me in check, and they give me little messages sometime when I'm going down that road to Abilene. The production team, I can't thank them enough. The people who own InRadio.com, not only are the business associates, they're friends of mine too, which kind of makes it a lot easier sometimes, and I think sometimes I get away with things because I am their friend. And I can't thank Kevin Basic enough, the Long Island Need for Speed. He's become like my chauffeur when it comes to going to these places, whether it means coming to the show or going, up to Bethel, to Wall Stadium, wherever we go, he's the man driving. And, coming back and this stuff with you guys and gals and that watch each and every week. It's not a thing to put on a show like this. A lot of people don't realize it's, like when you look at a racetrack, how hard is it to run a racetrack? You open the gate, you let the cars in. Well, how hard could it be to do a talk show? You turn on the lights, you start talking. It's not an easy thing. It's a lot of work goes into doing a lot of hours. I think we probably, for the 1 hour show that we do, we probably put in about 30 hours. And that doesn't account post-production and stuff like that. We're working on a few things. Going back to racing the early years, a lot of the nostalgia, the videos that we have and the interviews that I did, at some of these racetracks with the old timers that are still out there racing, these old time racers. And we're going to put a little special together on that as well. And as well as some of these guys that, why do you like guys that live in New Jersey go race in Connecticut? And why do guys in Connecticut race upstate New York? And why do guys from upstate New York go to Long Island? Why do Long Island the guys go upstate? We have a little piece about that we're going to have in this winter. So we have a lot planned for this off season, a little bit different than previous, where we really didn't have too much to talk about. I mean, once the banquet circuit was done, there wasn't too much to talk about. And then, start getting ready for Speed Week, so that takes another week or two. And before you know it, this season is going to be ending. There's 3 races left. There's Texas, Phoenix, and Homestead. And then there'll be the Spring Cup Series banquets and the Touring Series banquets. It'll be the holidays, it'll be January, and before you know it, it'll be February, we'll be back at Daytona for Speed Week. So it's all looking good. But anyway, we got about 4 or 5 minutes left. So what I want to do is, again, I thanked all the people here at InRavio, and it's kind of funny how people have no idea what goes on behind the scenes, like I said earlier. But again, I can't thank my guys enough for everything they do to make me look good. And we have some good things planned for this off season, and it should be really good. And again, to thank the chat room regulars, the WJ 22 Figure 8, Chase Ice, Mike Buska, who comes on all the time with all these assorted names, and then the racetracks that come and call us and make it interesting. Tim Pitts, Orange County Fast Speedway, he comes in and calls us. The guys from Mahoning, they call us. Mountain people call in. Tracy up in Bethel. Promoting their racetrack on my show, and that's a good thing. And they're good to me, I'm good to them, and we work together. And that's what it's all about, and that's today's lesson, folks. What do you learn from some of these things? And one hand washes the other. My grandfather always said this. He goes, one hand washes the other, and both hands wash your face. You can't do one without the other. So that's always a good thing. But anyway, with that, those of you who are going to the North-South Shootout down in Concord, North Carolina, please be safe. Those of you who are going other places to go racing, wherever that may be, also please be safe. Whatever endeavors have you doing this week until our next show, be safe. And don't forget, in the blink of an eye, it could all change. Tell somebody you love them, give them a hug. God bless you all, and thank you all for being a part of this show tonight and every night. Have a good night. See you next week.
InRavio.com.